What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Play It Out podcast, a competitive-focused Age of Sigmar podcast. My name is Kyle, aka Creator Gator, and I'm here with my ever-loyal assistant, James. James, how are you doing today?
I like to think myself a little higher than an assistant.
Co-host, friend, brother.
Kyle's like my intern.
my minion.
Yeah.
James. I don't know. I'm running out of words.
It
Like, I don't pre-plan the words. I think of the words as I'm talking to the camera.
Listen, that's the, what's it called? That's the guy podcast, dude.
Literally.
No thinky brain.
Just brain. Just talky. Yeah. Say hot stuff. And people be like, these guys are stupid. Man, you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, those guys sound kind of dumb.
It's like, these guys have just wrong opinions. And you're like, yeah, that's why you're here. Your bullshit opinion.
Can I help you diagnose the problem of why there's so many podcasts? It's because this is literally like the scenario that happens every time. Is like you're listening to a podcast and you're like, these guys are so fucking dumb. I could do that. And then they get their other friend. Right? And it's just the wheels.
Let me speak to the people, Piccolo. I have to
speak to the people, Piccolo.
No one's stopping you. One thing, I'm not a big fan of the government. I love that soundbite. That soundbite lives rent free in my head all day, every day. But anyway, we're talking about Warscrolls today because they did it. They showed us the Warscroll. That was the thing that we were like, I'm waiting for this Warscroll. As soon as they show me the Warscroll, I'm gonna hop on it. I'm super excited. So on April 4th, they showed us 2 Warscrolls, and they talked more about how Warscrolls work in the new edition of Age of Sigmar going into 4th edition.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they launched a Warscroll that looked super wacky on like April 1st? And everybody's like, is that are you memeing? Are we memeing?
Rats have 32 attacks.
And you get 35 wounds.
5 wounds. You don't know. But anyway, so they showed us the Liberator Warscroll, the new Liberator that's coming out. They showed us Nagash Warscroll, and they talked more about how the phase color system and the ability symbols work. And we have some notes. So let's pop open and look at the first Warscroll that they showed us, which is probably one of the more simpler ones that we're ever going to see.
The Libs.
And that's the Liberators. It's funny because they keep calling them like the humble soldier, and I'm like, you do remember that these guys are like eternal warriors of a god, right?
Listen,
like,
dude, somebody's got to be the shitter, okay? Like somebody has to be this.
That's
like,
Steel Helms. Steel Helms should be
in this army. Someone has to be. You have to be the lowest Stormcast, right? Like there's a hierarchy of Stormcast. Like this is the lowest Stormcast.
You're correct.
Yes,
they did say these guys hit hard for like the basic unit. You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see what other armies' basic unit looks like compared to these guys. Because we'll get into it. But one of the things it's kind of interesting, if I'm going to skip around a little bit, is they don't tell us how many models are in the unit.
No, that is one of the things that I was kind of looking for.
That's one of the things that's missing. And we'll see, because I'm still curious if they're gonna make one of like the Liberators, the Vanquishers, or the Vindictors a 10-man unit, and that's what I want, especially with only being able to reinforce once. I want a unit that has 20 wounds. Can I get a unit that has 20 wounds, please? That's all I'm asking for.
Please, not 10. Please, not 10. More than 10.
More than 10. So let's start at the top with what they're calling on the number 1 with the image that they have right here. And that's our move characteristic. That has not changed in the same spot.
And it's 5.
Is what it is. That they typically move. Yeah. So that's...
Frogs move 6. Yeah. Apparently that's fast.
I keep telling you, like, they're slow. I'm like, they're not. My entire army is 5 inches. Some smaller. You know what I mean? Like, I think Annihilators only move 4 because they're in like chunky armor.
Because they're thick.
The second stat is our health.
Health, no wounds.
Praise be to Sigma. It's Sigma. It's health.
Ligma has delivered me from the womb.
Yep. It's 2, so no change there. Again, it's going to be 2 health per model. No change. The third stat is the one that's new. That's our control stat. So instead of bravery on our little circle, we're going with control. And we'll talk about that.
Called it.
Yep, there it is. Yeah, you called it. Again, mark 1 up for James. He called it. I'm surprised because I felt like it was like a thing in the game, but I feel like they're just getting away from it entirely. They're like, I don't want to deal with that. Nobody likes it. everyone just finds ways to avoid it. 40k people hate it. We're just gonna not do it. You know what I mean?
But what if?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if anything like messes with control stats. I'm sure, like, because
oh yeah, I think that they're definitely over. There's going to be like some weird heroes that are like, oh, only control stats of like 2 or more actually count on this objective.
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
there's going to be something like that, or like orc units will be like, oh, like people with OC of 1 like can't like honestly, especially because like in the article they explain that like the OC stat is kind of the change or the next iteration of Battle Shock, right? I could see a lot of death armies getting something baked in where it's like, hey, like reduce your OC by 1.
Actually, that's a really good thing to think about, because like that is how like in 40k, that's kind of how Battle Shock works. So if you fail a Battle Shock test in 40k, your OC goes to 0. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, I kind of liked it, but it's one of those rough things that's annoying to keep track of. So a lot of people don't like it, and there's a lot of ways around that in Battle Shock. So like everyone's like, it either matters or it doesn't. You know what I mean? Depending on what like army rules you have. But that is really interesting. That's a good point, because anything that probably like death and is scary that goes for bravery might affect like, your control
stat.
It'll
limit your control stat, like,
which is a one. It's cleaner than the Battle Shock thing that 40k has.
Yeah, because
that's like a dice roll.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's not like are you Battle Shocked? Are you not Battle Shocked? It's like oh, there's just a rule that impacts your like control score. You know?
That's huge. I think that's a good thing to think about going forward. Because that could be like very game changing. You know what I mean? That's the thing that matters, right? Is how many like points or bodies you count on as an objective.
Like maybe it's something that it's like, oh, like certain, like that was a huge thing for Nighthaunt, right? It's like their whole thing is like they screw, like they have their like they can't be rended, you know what I mean? And in addition to that, it's like they, you can't make leadership, and like there's different other like side effects if you're like scared by a Nighthaunt unit, or they're within melee. I could see it being one of those things where there's like a rule that it's like, oh, like certain army rules, or it's like a sub-faction rule that like, oh, if you're within melee of a unit that has like this keyword, or even if it's just the whole army, like it's the army rule, like if you're within melee, your OC is reduced by 1.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I'm excited to see. We'll talk more about it when we talk about the passive ability that's on the Liberators. But just so we keep going in order, the next one is the save. It's the 3-up save. It's what we know. It's what we love.
Love it. It's tasty.
I don't know why it's green. Do you know why it's green? Why is it green? Why are you blue?
It might be because one of those things that it's the only stat that can change more than 1. Like, how like wound to hit, like certain things like that, they can only be incremented in like, they can only be +1 or -1, right? Like you can't go any lower than +1 or -1.
Yeah.
Right? Like that one, like you can take it all the way to the roof until you can't save anymore.
That's true. I'm curious. Because that would basically get rid of what you were talking about, like if with the control being like not something you can mess with.
No, same thing with you can because you can mess with the other ones too, but you can only mess with them in increments of 1.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah,
like it's a hard cap of +1 or -1 instead of. Like,
I don't know how effective that would be at reducing the movement of something by 1.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? So I'm confused at why it's green. I don't know why.
That was just a guess. You know what I mean?
That's the only thing is like I'm holding out for understanding is that number 5 they have the name. No shock there. It tells us our Stormcast Eternals Warscroll and gives us the name, so we know what faction it's in, and we know what the name of the unit is. 7 is our weapon profiles. And these neither of these Warscrolls have a ranged ability, but I assume they're going to break it up because it says melee weapons, and then they'll probably have ranged weapons underneath. And then we see our Warhammers, our Grand Hammers. Each get 2 attacks, threes, 1 rend, and then 1 damage or 2 damage. And something to note is the rend minus is gone.
Which is nice.
Which it makes sense in my brain, and I feel like you're either on one side or the other, where it's like your brain knows about it. But explaining it to a new person, where you're like, oh yeah, so I have -1 rend, and your save is at 3+. So they're like, okay, so my save goes to a 2+, because 3 - 1 is 2. And you're like, no, it
gets
actually
worse.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Which means it goes up.
Which means it goes up. Yeah. The number goes up, and you're like, I get it. Like after you've played your first like 1 to 3 games, you understand it. It's ingrained in you. But this is one of those things where I think it makes the math a little bit easier.
Yeah, thinking about it now is actually messing with my head. Like I've never gotten it wrong in my entire like career of playing this game, but now thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make like the minus doesn't make any sense. You know?
It does because it's like it
get worse.
It get worse, but worse go bigger.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of times too, like when a word that I like to say a lot in this podcast is colloquially, because I feel like that's just like in conversation, like when you're talking about the game, you say my unit has a rend, or this unit has weapons with a rend of 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people go, okay, cool, that's -1 to my, or like that's a 1 worse to my save. You know, a lot of times you aren't reading off. Yeah, you're not reading off the sheet anyway. Like I think this is just like a nice, like tidiness. We're tidying things a little bit.
Agreed. And then we go to the abilities of the weapons, and they did mention that this is one of our 7 abilities, and many people have started guessing about what the other abilities are. One thing that I haven't seen that people have said, what's that?
Lance.
I
think that's gonna be one.
Yeah. One thing that I haven't seen that people have said is, so this says crit, right? And then in parentheses it says mortal. And if you've played any of the games, you know what that means. It means if you roll a 6 to hit, that now becomes mortal damage. And they explain that like later in the article, right? But they didn't explain it fully. But from context clues, I can say hit rolls of a 6 equal a crit.
Yeah.
Now, what does
a crit do?
Yeah. Now that a crit will basically do something specific depending on what the word is in the parentheses. So for this way, a crit equals a mortal, right? So whatever the damage is, it turns into mortals. Easy. The other one that I'm speculating on that we've seen a lot in 40K is crit equals explode. Yeah. Where, you know what I mean? That's an easy way to say hit rolls of 6 count twice.
Yep. I could also see something where it's like, again, all speculation, and I don't know if this is in 40K or not, but crit where it goes like auto wound. You know what I mean? Or like, or something. There's another word. Maybe there's another word for that.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people wanted the crit mortal to be a crit like auto wound because crit mortals are kind of, they can get scary, especially when like 40K. The big issue with the keywords was crit mortals or on range weapons that could shoot out of line of sight. And then you could also give them like a crazy buff for crits. Like their crits would be like exploding or something like that. So it would basically like you could stack those two and then just do an insane amount of mortal wounds, right? People are being like, oh my God, they're making the same mistakes that 40K made. But like, I think
they're melee weapons.
They're melee weapons. Yeah. I think that's the big difference is the melee is going to be.
That being said, the same ability is currently on your long strike crossbows.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You're damn skippy. It is. I forget about it, honestly, sometimes. It's just a more way that you can get more consistent damage across.
It's less scary because like this game like kind of neuters shooting, which I think it should.
Yeah, and they actually talked about that later on in the article. Shooting's probably going to get worse. But yeah, so that's our profiles. They say each model in this unit is armed with a warhammer, singular, and then 1 in 5 models can replace the warhammers with a grand hammer. And they say the champion in this unit can't replace their weapon, right? So I was trying to find confirmation of it because I've heard it and I've seen it multiple times on social media as people are asking me about the Liberator Warscroll, whether or not there was going to be 2 different Warscrolls. So there's 2 Liberators in the picture on this Warscroll. Both of them have
double hammers.
Confusing because they can build them with shields or hammers, right? So basically what the Warhammer social media team has said is you can build them however you want and they'll have the same Warscroll. So that 3-up save is basically like how Liberators work in the current edition. If they have double hammers, they get more attacks. If they have shields, they get pluses to their save, right? Yeah. So they basically just pushed those 2 Warscrolls together and said, you get these attacks and this save, regardless of how you built them, which I like. I hope that's the truth. I hope that's how the game goes forward. You know what I mean? And they already like give you the Grand Hammer option in there. So again, I want to see that in a Warhammer in a Warhammer community article. I don't want to just rely on social media interns doing it. Mm-hmm. But that is something that I've heard and I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see. It's one of those things that simplifies things, right? Like, again, we talked about it in the last podcast, but things that like are taking choices out of the game that don't really have much impact, right?
Yep.
Like, nobody really cares if your 100-point chaff unit has another attack. Like, that's great. You can kill another chaff unit better, but like it does, and it'll matter for like bigger units. But usually, bigger units kind of are ironed out with like their ancient weapons or like however they're like they only have one profile and it's like Ren 2 3 damage or something like that. And I think that this is a very positive change because it's also easier for intro players, which has been a very common thing throughout like all the not leaks, but all the releases we've gotten for this new edition.
Yeah. And maximum, like if everything hits, everything wounds, nothing saves, it all goes through. It's a maximum of 12 damage. Yeah.
It's also nice that they said that you can't do the thing where you're replacing your champion weapon with the Grand Hammer.
Yeah, because that's literally what I do with my Liberators right now because it's just mathematically efficient. Like you have to do it because sometimes there is a chance. You know what I mean? You got to give yourself all the advantages that you can.
100%.
But I think like you shouldn't. Like you should.
It should just be baked in. It should just
be baked in. Those mathematical advantages should already be calculated for.
Yes, agreed. And then I see in the keywords, you did 7.
Well, yeah, I skipped over 6 because I didn't realize they skipped around.
Yeah, they did skip around. But let's go to 6 because I think honestly, there's a lot to talk about within the keywords.
Okay.
So you see infantry and champion, right, on an upper tier, which is like, okay, like this counts as like an infantry unit for the purposes of like, does it count as a troop? Does it count as like, we don't have behemoth anymore, but like artillery and stuff like that. Like, I don't exactly
It's probably going to be like infantry mounted.
Yeah. Or infantry or hero. You know what I mean? Like it honestly might just be those two because it's like, it seems like, I don't know. Like it doesn't look like they're drawing a lot of lines. So I can't imagine why, infantry, like maybe there are special rules regarding infantry. Like maybe infantry can be maybe mounted units can't be reinforced or it's like, they can only be reinforced in specific, regiments.
Well, they already said how reinforcements work. They said if it's it affects not everything. A single, not a hero, then you can reinforce it.
Yeah. But I'm saying is like, I don't understand what else the keyword infantry would get you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know either. We'll see. We see that they have champion in there, which they've already talked about. I assume that it means that they can give themselves orders.
Yeah. Nice.
They probably won't have +1 attack because that's something that's like annoying to think about.
Yeah, it just keeps the math easy where you're like, okay,
what it is, what you get.
It is what, just do the math. 5 models, 2 attacks each.
Yeah. Now, in the previous podcast, you said that you think this is a stripped down version of the Warscroll.
Yeah, I think that I just think that like I didn't think it's stripped down. I just think there's certain things that I'm looking for, right? One is point values, right?
Yeah, which we don't have on Warscrolls anyway. The point values are in they're currently in the back of the book, but they're more known as in a PDF, right? Yes. You see a unit and then it has in currently we have in that PDF it says unit, it says number of models in the unit, and then it says point value.
Another thing,
any special things.
Yeah, the other thing I was really looking for, which you have noted here, and I think it might be this, is the warrior chamber keyword, right? Yeah. Like, I was interested to see if it was like on this Warscroll, it would say like can be included in regiments with. You know what I mean? Or it's like, I didn't know if it was going to be like from the hero, it was going to call from the hero down or from the model up. Or both. That is going to say like, hey, I can be brought in a regiment with like these types of heroes, or the heroes like I can be like in regiments with me as a hero. I can bring models with this keyword, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like this hero can take warrior chamber units.
Yes, I agree. And kind of looking at that now, I kind of see that. It's just one of those things that I had imagined that it would be like another bullet point on the Warscroll, not just a keyword. Like it's interesting that they're baking that into a keyword.
I don't have any 40k Warscrolls. You can look at the 40k Warscroll, but it is that way. It is the way that you're talking about. Where like on the back it says the amount of models in the unit, it says the war gear options, and then it says what leader can lead that unit.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So this would be like one side of it, essentially.
People, it's funny, like everyone was like talking about like if it's on one page, it's like including the back,
including the back, please,
including the back.
Yeah, because it's the last thing was the like how many models, Cause...
Yeah, and that could either be on the back of this or it could be in a separate document. Hope it's not. It's probably on the back of this, I would assume. They're just not saying that yet, but I assume this is going to be a 5-person unit that can be reinforced up to 10.
Yeah. I think that there's going to be certain units that like, and this is all speculation, but I think that like certain troop units will basically be like, oh, this comes in 10, this in a similar way that like Ard boys and brutes got treated, where it's like, okay, Ard boys come in groups of 10 that are actually now more expensive than brutes, but you can reinforce them, which makes them 20 instead of brutes can only be reinforced once and you can make them 10,
Yeah. And then we have the order keyword, we have the Stormcast Eternals keyword, and then Warrior Chamber, which is like pretty like
lean,
brief. Yeah, it's pretty lean compared to the keyword soup that we have right now.
Yeah.
Many people have said no sub-factions, which we already know that. There's no sub-faction keyword, which is fine. I think everybody kind of understands, if you're taking this like battle formation, you know what I mean? You're going to...
No Redeemer keyword.
No Redeemer keyword. That is true. I don't know, because like they kind of did that where certain rules would hit Paladins, certain rules would hit Redeemers. They had like, for people who aren't familiar with Stormcast, inside like each chamber, they had your basic troop unit was more or less a Redeemer. So that's like your Vindictor, your Vanquisher, your Liberators. Your basic troops were considered Redeemers, and there was a couple rules that bounced off Redeemers. So we'll see if they're going to do that. That might be one of the things that they cut.
I feel like that'd be nice because then it's like the buffs can be a little more universal.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And we already talked about 7, so that leads us to 8, which is like the biggest one, I guess, on this Warscroll, because the Warscroll is pretty similar to what we already seen.
Yeah, these are the bog standard troopers.
It's a bog standard troop, and it's lean cut for what our old Liberators were, except for this ability. Do you want to talk about the ability?
Yeah, sure. So Stalwart Defenders. The effect is the unit can add 3 to the unit's control score if it's contesting an objective wholly within friendly territory. So basically, if you're holding objectives within your zone, or like if you're holding an objective while you're wholly within your zone, while it's contesting an objective. Oh no! So the objective wholly within.
Yeah, I was going to say
the
this was
has
something
to be
that
in
I'm
friendly territory, not the unit.
Yes, which is fine. I think
it's fine, but I'm saying that like if you have like 2 objectives on the line, like that is 0 objectives.
If you're familiar with the Stormkeep thing, I believe no, it's either within. I think they just say within or wholly within, so it would count, but not for this one. This one is different. This one they specifically say different, and I wanted you to read it out because I interpreted this originally differently. So read it one more time just so it's fresh in our brains.
Add 3 to this unit's control score while it's contesting an objective wholly within friendly territory.
Yep. Okay, so let's break that down. The control score at the top is 1, right?
I know the question you're going to ask.
Yeah. Well, it was the thing that like everybody kind of bounced around. So basically how this is going to work is each model has a control of 1, right?
Yes.
But this unit, so like at the end of the turn, right? And that's it's a purple ability. It's passive, which means it automatically happens. So and it's the purple phase. It's the end of it's the end of the turn, right? That's when you're calculating up your objectives. The circle means it's a control ability, so that goes to the controls of the circles that we're trying to take over on the board. And so you add 3 to this unit's control score while it's contesting an objective. Wholly within friendly territory. So
lots of asterisks.
I know. Yeah, they're very specific. It's very magic-y. You know what I mean? Which I appreciate. So let's say there's 5 models. Each model has a control score of 1, right? So we're up to 5, right? So this unit now has a control score of 5. Now add 3 to that. Yep. So now we're at 8. So like if this thing is at full strength in friendly territory on an objective, it counts for 8 control score. That is your control score.
8, not 15. It's not per model.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the big, like there's subtle things where they talk about it. But how the control score works. I'll have to bring it up word for word how the control score works. I think I put it in the slideshow, but it is slightly, but importantly, different than how we're doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything you want to talk about more on the Liberator side before we move on to the phase colors?
Generally, I like the fact that the cards aren't horizontal and they're like playing card size.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of, I have some cards.
Yes.
So people were like, "Oh man, if this fits on a Magic card, like that's gonna it's gonna be cool.
You can put it in sleeves.
We can put it in sleeves, and everyone's excited. But it's not going to. I'm sorry. So this is a Magic card. All right. So you can kind of see the shape of it, and that is much longer than a Magic card. Yeah. So it is going to be tarot cards because Games Workshop has already said that they like printing tarot cards. I have one for Warhammer 40,000. This is the Leviathan pack, and then I have one for the Kill Team Special Operations
tarot cards.
Yeah, both of these show like your shows like the board, the layout of the objectives and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see how much bigger these cards are, which is good because otherwise you'd be squinting, right?
True.
And they do make tarot card sleeves, so not the worst thing in the world.
I'm not mad anymore. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, but it is much smaller than the current War Scrolls that we have. But I'm okay with that because you couldn't really get sleeves for the current War Scrolls that you have. Yeah. So
the current cards are like this.
Yeah, I like that.
And some of the cards are like this.
I hate that. Get that out of there. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
How dare you bring that in my Christian podcast?
Get that heresy out of here.
Yeah. So that's the Liberators. I like it. I like how it's set up. They do kind of waste a lot of space with the pretty pictures, but that's fine because it's a basic unit. You know what I mean? Yeah. We'll get when we talk about Nagash, we'll talk how they
There's no pictures.
There's no picture. Okay, so let's move on to the face colors and ability symbols page.
Also on a tarot card.
Also on a tarot card. Okay, so and like how they do both of these actually is so you get like all of your secondaries, your primaries, and your
Leviathan,
your layouts in here, but they also give you a crap ton of like the Kill Team one shows you all of the steps of a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like it walks you through like how all the steps of a turn to like help you understand how a turn works, and then this tells you all of the like special rules because this is their GHB. This is Warhammer's GHB, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this walks you through all of like the special stuff. I mean, not special, but you know what I mean? The stuff that's happening in this season of play.
Yeah.
So with these looking like tarot cards, I would not be surprised if we get something that like tells us this, at least in the launch box of like, hey, this is how you play. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you can like throw that at your friend when you're learning to play with the Stormcast and the Rats and say, hey, this is how it works. Oh, so let's look at the turn phases, and we have some colors and we got some abilities. So do you want to walk us through what our new turn phases look like?
So it's not that much dissimilar. Like it's not, I honestly don't think it's dissimilar at all from the current state of turn, you know, right? It's start of turn, hero phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, combat phase, end of turn, right? The only thing removed is the battle shock phase. You know?
Importantly, they mentioned start of turn, and importantly, they mentioned end of turn, which I don't know was. I think they mentioned it sometimes in Age of Sigmar 3.
Yeah,
but I don't
know.
They
do because I know they do specifically just because I have rules that like do that. Like I can only respawn units at end of turn phase. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I can only heal. Like I heal at start of turn. You know, or the moon happens at start of turn. You know,
that is something that many people have pointed out. They're like, this is all fine and good. What happens what's the order of individual phases? And are we going to get into the start of the hero phase, end of the hero phase, middle of the hero phase?
I think they're going to try to solve that with cause and effect.
I think so too.
Like, I think they're still going to have their like Amoebus buckets, like, which isn't great, but like, I'm sure that like they're going to do a lean. Like, I don't think like Primal's done after this season. And other than that, you just have, what are the other two things that happen at start of hero phase? It's picking battle tactic and
rolling primal dice.
No, heroic actions, right?
When you roll primal dice.
No, yes, I'm saying like after this season that's gone, what's left? You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
It's picking your battle tactic and your heroic action. That's it.
Okay.
You know, So it's like,
that's fair.
I think that like we're losing a lot of the, like, we're not getting super ironed out things like we kind of wanted, but I think that they're trying to do like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. This is the cause. This is the effect. If you have something that interrupts, you can do something that interrupts.
100%. And we'll definitely see that when we go on to Nagash in the third time. But yeah, I think that's how they're going to fix that. Is instead of like at the start of the hero phase, you're just going to be in the hero phase, and you're going to declare that you're going to do it, right? And then someone else will affect. And I assume if it's your turn, you'll probably get priority on whether or not things happen. Right?
Yeah, or you get to pick what order things happen in.
Something like that. Or like if there's hero effect stuff that you want to do in the hero phase, it's like, all right, you do your hero things. And if I ever respond to that, then I will. And then I'm going to do my things in the hero phase. And if you ever respond to that, you do that. So it'll probably get confusing at the, like, as soon as you have Nagash bumping into
Archeon or Archon. Yeah.
Archeon or as soon as you have Nagash bumping into Archeon, or as soon as you have Nagash bumping into Kragnos, I'm sure that's going to like start to get confusing. But I think overall it is more simple than what we have currently. And for the ability icons, this just shows like each ability. If it's a movement ability, so like probably like a redeploy, right? Offensive ability, like all attack. Defensive ability, all defense. Shooting ability, all attack.
Or unleash heck.
Unleash heck. Rallying ability, rally. Special ability,
rallying ability, rally.
rally. And then control ability. And I think they did a good job with the symbols. The symbols look like what they mean.
Yeah.
People were like, "What the special ability?" But it kind of looks like a star. You know what I mean?
It's
and
a little Sigmar emblem. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the control is the circles that we're all fighting over.
Yeah. Hey guys, remember
those
this game's
narrative
about?
Circles.
The circles.
Yeah. And so I think that's pretty. I think it's laid out pretty well. I think everything I'm seeing, I like. I don't think I have any issues with any of this.
No, I agree. All right, you want to move on to the meat of this potatoes?
Yeah, let's move on to the meat.
Okay, so Nagash, right? So this is like, in my opinion, probably one of the most complicated Warscrolls in the current game as it sits, right? Like, this is the god of death. He is a eight cast wizard. Like, he's crazy, right? Super complicated. And I honestly like in this article that they gave us a Liberator, which is like, should be like, is your bog standard. This is like a standard trooper.
This is the first model you're ever going to touch.
100%. This is the poster boy faction trooper unit, you know? And then they gave us Nagash, literally the god of death and one of the most complicated factions of the game. Death, like, and he's got like, in the current state, he's got a ton of rules that kind of go along with him. But in this state, he was able to fit, they were able to fit all like the important stuff, or all like the crazy stuff onto the tarot card, which I like. If this is the worst we're getting, like, sign me up, you know? Like,
100%.
I love it.
100%. I've read through his Wahapedia article just because I was curious. And like what stayed, what changed. And like a lot of the meat, like you said, every impactful thing pretty much stayed. It's slightly different, but it's slightly smoother. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's easier. It reads better. It's like, there's less asterisks. I think that like they did a good job with this. So, right. So we have the same thing here. We have the health score is 18, which I think is the same as it is now.
Yep.
His 10-inch move. He has fly.
Yep. Which importantly doesn't bracket like it does currently.
Agreed. The bracketing also changed, which we'll get to, which is awesome. So
love it.
The save is a 3-up, right? He's a god model. It should be at least a 3-up.
Yep.
And then he has a control of 10, right? So like, it's not there's monster. No weird table. He's not a monster.
Well, he's a monster, but monsters now only count as 5. And I looked at his Warscroll. That's what I was looking for. I was like, oh, he counts as 10. I want to know if he counts as 10 in the normal game. And I'm pretty sure he only counts as 5.
No, he only counts as 5 because he's a monster. That's what I'm saying. But
he's
it's nice.
100%.
But what I'm saying is it's nice that they gave. I think they're going to remove. Like, I don't think there's going to be rules like that anymore. With,
no,
like,
there shouldn't be.
No, because you have a control score. You know. Like, 100%. There's no like math on the side that's happening, you know. I've lost a game because I don't understand how holding points works with Kragnos, you know. Yeah. It's nice to just be like, oh, what's your OC? And you're like, oh, it's 10. I'm like, okay, cool. I can do that math, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of control score, I just wanted to read it out because I know we mentioned it earlier. So the exact definition of control score that they said in this article is a unit's control score is the sum of this characteristic from all models in the unit contesting an objective. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. So all models in the unit contesting an objective. Yes. So all models that are currently contesting an objective in that unit, you tally that up, right? I wouldn't assume that if you can get one rat touching the objective, you now have, a control score of 20.
It's you have to have that many. It's like however many are actually quote unquote contesting the objective, which will be outlined in the new core rules, right? Contesting an objective is like having any part of your base on like that, 6-inch wheel or the 7 point whatever inch wheel.
Yeah.
It's nice that Nagash, it doesn't matter. It's only one big base.
One big base. But yeah, I like how they said that because it's going to be like, all right, what's this unit's now control score on the objective? All right, it's 5. All right, what's this one? 10.
Yeah.
All right. It makes
it's
the math
easier math, which is nice.
Easier. All right.
So next is melee weapons, right? So he's not a super, there's some good melee weapons here because he's the god of death, but he's clearly not a hit. Like, he's not a melee boy.
Yeah.
But interesting enough, he doesn't have any ranged weapons. It's all casting,
Yeah, which is the way that he is now.
Yes.
He did lose one weapon, which was like, spectral hands or something like that. But it was like 8 attacks, 4s, no rend, 1 damage.
Yeah, it was like the ghosts that were flying around him. It wasn't him. Yeah.
And that's one of those things that I'm like, good. Like that little thing, if you do that to every model that has something like that and just make it like anything that's like bullshit, like get rid of it. It makes the game go so much quicker.
It's not impactful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have this new little block, battle damaged, right? Please. Yep. If this replaces all tables in the game, I would love it. You know?
And I think it will.
I think it will too.
It's also passive. So it's one of those things that's constantly happening.
Just happens.
Just happens.
Yeah. So the effect is while this unit has 10 or more wounds or damage points allocated to it, subtract 3 from its power level, right? Now that, my friends, is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because power level is ambiguous right now.
Yeah. Let's skip around a little bit and say, because we talked about this on the side.
Yes.
Tell me what you believe power level is when it comes down to his Wizard 9 keyword.
Yeah. So if you scroll down to the keywords, exactly what you're saying about, like you see Wizard and then in parentheses 9, right? So I would believe he's currently in the game an 8-cast wizard, right? So if you see Wizard 9 here, my interpretation of this is he is a 9-cast wizard now.
Yep. His power level is 9.
His power level.
His power level.
Yeah. But
so
I say he casts 3 less spells. Like when he has 10 wounds allocated to him, he can only cast 6 spells, which is like a lot of his utility is his spells.
Yeah, and that's kind of how he does in the game now. He just doesn't lose any move. He doesn't lose any attacks. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that's being affected by him being damaged is his spell casting, which is perfect. That's the thing that you care about anyway.
Yes, agreed. So it's I'm hoping that is like that's how that is, because I feel like that's it's much simpler than bracketing, and it's like, and you can kind of play with like it does give the uniqueness of you get to play with what like how models get hurt, and like you only touch the things that actually matter. It's not just like you hit less, and it's like, well, I'm a big shooty hero, who cares, or like I'm a big like spell casting hero, who cares,
100%.
So I hope that that's kind of like across the board how bracketing is kind of now going to work. Another passive ability he has, right, is the sun. Or hold on, there's a icon here that isn't on the ability icons.
That's the special one.
No. The skull one.
The skull one?
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's just the ability that means like damage.
Yeah, maybe it's just damage. Like it's just for bracketing.
Just for bracketing.
Not to be like actually look at dot your T's, cross your eyes. But
I agree. When I saw the skull, I was like, that wasn't the thing. And I feel like if they should, but whatever.
You just showed me what you're going to show me.
Yeah. We do know this is a special ability and it's passive for the casting.
And he's
rolls.
also the most complicated hero in the game.
Yeah.
Arguably. Like, it's fine. The next one, Staff of Power, right? Add 2 to the casting rolls for this unit while it has not miscast. Important. So miscasts are still miscasts. If this unit miscasts a spell, ignore the restriction that would stop it from casting, which is also important because I feel like Nagash really relies on the amount of casts that he can do.
Yeah.
He's an 800-point unit. Like, dude,
and when that's a confirmation that miscast kind of work the same way that they do now. If you miscast, you stop casting. Easy. And they say, it add 2 to the casting roll. So when we get to it, We'll talk when we get to the spell that he's mainly going to be spamming. We'll talk about that.
Oh, dude, that spell's so nice. It makes me want to get a Nagash model so bad. All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to talk about that last because that's
but that is it's gold, so it's in the hero phase. It's passive, so it's happening all the time, and it's one of his special abilities. Easy.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, next is the once per turn ability, Hand of Dust.
Yep.
Scariest,
once per turn. Once per turn. Parentheses army, so like you can only do this like once in your army. You know what I mean? It's not like a once per turn for this model. It's once per turn for your whole army.
Yeah,
and you know that
it's multiple Nagashes.
Yeah, and you know that it's at the end of any turn, so you can do it in your opponent's turn and your turn. So important to know.
Big, and this is the I point at one thing, I show you a dice. If you pick the wrong hand, it's gone.
Yep.
What's crazy is it's visible enemy hero, like visible. It's not. There's no range.
Oh my god.
Anywhere on the field.
Oh my god. I didn't realize that. I thought he had to be in combat.
Let me see your general, sir.
Pick a visible enemy hero or monster. It says in combat.
Oh, in combat. So it does have to be in combat.
I was going to say that's not how I read it. I don't remember being
there.
So visible enemy. Don't blah, blah, blah. Read the whole thing.
I don't want to, though. It's way scarier if I don't. No, you're right. I remember. Because I remember actually having that same like sweat moment where you're like, anywhere on the field.
Yeah. But it's nice that they say hero or monster, so you know you're killing a single model. You're not killing a whole unit. You know what I mean?
100%.
Because that's how they're different.
It's also not I don't know if you can use it on a troop, right?
No, you can't.
You have to use it on a hero monster.
Yeah. They don't want you to kill a whole unit. They want you to kill one specific hero or one specific monster that you're in combat with.
I mean, that's how it works now, but it's just a single model. Like you basically just pick a model.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. That's a little weird. I think it's actually worse. It's far worse than it was before. I mean, you don't have to roll for it. It happens twice. It can happen twice.
Yeah,
but if it happens more than once, that's a problem.
Yeah, but it's basically he puts the dude who's controlling the Nagash puts a dice in each hand, or puts a dice in one of the hands, and then your opponent has to pick. And if you pick the wrong one, if you pick the empty one, the target is automatically destroyed.
Yeah.
Something that they say that I like is the target. They don't just say it, because I don't know how many rules have been ambiguous when it comes to what do you mean it? What do you mean they? You know what I mean? They just say the target, and the target is in the declare step. Easy.
Yes.
Takes all of the stuff out of it. Perfect. It's in purple, so it's at the end of the turn. And keyword rampage, which they said is basically the replacement for monstrous actions.
Yeah.
And I have the exact word here. They say Rampage, the vast majority of monsters now have a unique ability called out on their war scroll. So basically, this is his monster's action, is Hand of Dust.
Yeah, which is really good. I would like it if there's more unique monsters actions. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, in the finale, or I guess I'll just say it now, but what's nice is this is in the purple phase, right? So, but I could see there's a lot of monsters rampages. Currently, monsters rampages at the end of the combat, or at the end of the charge phase, right before the combat phase. So I would say the majority of the monsters rampages are going to be in different phases. So my Stegodon have something that when they charge, they do 2-up, they deal D3 mortal wounds, right? So that's probably going to be in the charge phase. So people were like, oh, monsters rampages are all in the end of the end of the turn. And it's no, this actually gives them the design capability to put them in any phase. They could be in the hero phase. They could be in the shooting phase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can put them in any phase.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I think it's a great thing for the design of the game.
Yeah, and I think it adds a lot more flexibility to what they can do with certain models.
Agreed.
The next ability, which is awesome, and I think that he has something similar to this now, is he can basically set up an identical unit of whatever death army he's a part of. Once it's destroyed, he can set up that army once per battle. And it says that cleanly right at the beginning of the text. It's rally ability because it brings models back.
Yep.
And it's just within 12, outside of 9. Very bog standard, but it's nice because you just get a
whole
unit
non-hero, non-unique death unit, which is pretty
really sick. The next one is the Spies. Yes. So the Invocation of Nagash, right? So you declare this cast can be cast more than once per phase, right? So that means you can just spam this thing,
Yep. And also that confirms that you're more in the core rules, it'll probably say most spells
can be cast once per phase.
You can be cast once per phase.
Similar to what it is now.
Yep. Just more confirmation of there's a lot of stuff that's working as we know it.
Yep.
This also has the keyword spell, which is important.
Yes, it does. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit that has not been picked to the target of spell. So important, you can't spam it, right?
You can't.
It's not a croak
it. Yep.
spell. It's not the croak like damage. It's like you
Yep.
can pick one and do a couple times, right? This unit can pick through the target spell, then make a 2d6 casting roll. The effect, if the target is an enemy unit, inflict d3 mortal wounds to it. If the target is a friendly death unit, then roll pick one of the following effects. Return a number of slain models to the target unit with a combined health of 3, or that target unit gets a 5-up ward. Bruh.
Until the start of the next turn.
Yeah, until the start of the next turn. But like, dude, being like, heal,
ward, damage, heal, ward, damage,
yeah, awesome.
heal,
also,
ward, damage.
I like the casting, you see the little like insignia in the top right where it's like that's like the casting value of the spell.
Yeah,
I love that.
What's great is they don't have to they didn't in the article they didn't tell us that's the casting value of the spell, right? But we can look at that and be like, 2d6 goes off on a 7. He's getting 2 to cast, so all this is going off on 5s. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like it's his spell. You know what I mean?
It's his spell.
Yeah, it's nice. And like honestly, right? That's it. Like you know what I mean? At the end, we got some. You know, we have some keywords like War Master, Unique, Hero, Monster, Wizard 9, which we already talked about. He has the Fly keyword, which I'm assuming is going to work very similar to how it does now. And he's got a War of 5-up. You know, there's no like weirdness to it. He just has
the word's not
5-up.
in because like currently the word is tucked in a text that just says all death units wholly within 12 of this model get it, and you're like, I guess technically he's a death unit wholly within 12 of this model, right?
Dude, I had, again, 100. We've talked about this multiple times. I had that one opponent, and I was like, are you sure Nagash doesn't get a ward? I'm pretty sure Nagash gets a ward.
Yeah,
like,
he's got a death. In death. He at
like
least gets a 6.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Like, I'm like, he gets something. He literally
gets
has
something.
To. Yeah. It's just, it's no longer ambiguous, right?
Yep.
And like, it's nice. And like, that's it, dude. That's it. That's the card, right? The card's done. That's the card.
Done. We just covered the God of Death.
Covered the God of Death. One of the most complicated.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, he's got a lot of rules, but like way less than he did before. And
he has like 4.
Yeah.
That's it.
And they're really good because they should be. He's an 800-point unit. Like, yeah.
I love it.
I love
10
it
out of
too.
10.
And if this is the worst that's coming, like, sign me up.
Because that's like your average. Like my Stegodon has more text than this.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
And this is
it's like a 240 point.
Yeah, 100%. It's not middle of the range; it's end of the range.
Yeah,
you know,
huge. Love it.
Ugh.
One thing that's interesting about his spell is the enemy has to be wholly within 18. Yeah. Which I don't think a whole lot of spells work. I guess. It's because you can cast on your friendly units.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
They also have to be within 18.
They also have to be wholly within 18 because that was the thing that I was looking at. I was like, that's weird. But yeah, so we already talked about the War Master. We assume that he is going to be going to let him lead anything
or special regiment rules
in his regiment.
Yeah.
Unique, we know that. Hero, Monster, Wizard 9, like we talked about. That is probably the easiest way they can say this thing can cast 9 spells, which is great. Death, and then Osiarch Bone Reapers, which in the article they said this is the one for the Osiarch Bone Reapers, as you can see it on the front, and he'll get a different War Scroll card for each death faction. And most people assume that it's not going to change. They're just going to change the words.
Yeah, there's going to be like certain words that they change, or like certain they're basically going to like not muddy his effects with other things that thing already does. You know, like they're going to make it be cohesive, so it does the same thing in every.
Yeah, it's probably, and that's probably why the once per battle in your hero phase. That's why it says unique, like non-hero, non-unique death unit.
Yes,
it doesn't say Osiarch Bone Reaper unit. It just says death. So they're just going to copy and paste this over, which is fine. I'd rather have that happen than have to learn 3 different Nagashes.
I'm pretty sure they're probably going to have like a tinting too. Like, or maybe this is just like the death tint for like the actual tarot card. Like, do you think the tint is going to be different per faction, or you think it's just or not per faction?
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's going to be like this. I think that is the death tint,
or just the death tint.
Like it's green at the top, and I think. Well, what was the Liberator?
It was like the normal, like the standard tarot.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay, so order's probably normal. Death, chaos, and destruction will probably all be a little bit different.
Yeah.
I kind of already talked about it, but yeah, I believe like with the colors, they're decoupling abilities from phases as we currently know them. So like monstrous rampages and spells, like the way that they set this up, you could potentially cast a spell in the charge phase.
Yeah. I actually hate that. Actually,
I'm just saying the design space is there. I don't think they'll do it, but the design space is there. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I like that at all.
I definitely see the monstrous rampages being something that is in different phases. Yeah. So, overall, I'm super excited.
Me too. Like, I love this.
And this I love the tarot card system.
Game. Yeah, tells you so much about the game. The Warscroll is what I was waiting for, because that gives you like okay, all of these words that we've been talking about, all right, we lay them out, and this is how it actually is going to look like.
Yep, 100%. One minor note: he doesn't have any ranged weapons, but they did say that ranged is going to be reducing overall. So like you might not see as many 30-inch range, 36-inch range. You might things are going to get closer. Which I don't mind. I don't like. I fought getting those range units that I have for a long time because I didn't want to play with them. But guess what? They're good. You know what I mean? So
they're good.
There I am.
Their numbers are good.
The numbers are what they should be. All right, but are there any final thoughts that you want to say?
I'm excited. I love it. I'm loving it. I know that I sound like the biggest James Workshop simp, but like I'm here, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Literally, it's so I'm also extremely excited by everything that they've shown us. I love the card system. That Warscroll card system was why I came over to play AOS, was because it's so much simpler. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this just makes it even more simple and more clear about exactly what's happening on the board. And it's funny because I'm going to take this card and show it to my Magic the Gathering friends that I play with every week. And they're going to be like, not only are they going to be able to understand exactly what's going on, but they're going to be like, this is for babies. Magic doesn't clearly lay this out in a effect step. You know what I mean?
What phase does it come in? That. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or in all the phases. This is going to be way more easy to understand than your typical game of Magic, which is something that's the biggest thing that has pushed people away from war games entirely, was because it's just confusing. You know what I mean? And the more clear you can make things, the easier it is to learn and love and enjoy this hobby.
Yeah, it's all good. Good for the game.
It's all good stuff. But we'll probably call it there, and hopefully next week they show us some more rules and potentially some more war scrolls. I want to see those rats.
Dude, give me that.
Show me them rats.
I want to see the box. I feel like we're gonna get the actual shots of the box in the next 2 weeks.
I hope so. We should get the contents of the box, or at least leading up to that. So we'll definitely see how that goes. But all right, everyone, thanks again for tuning in. James, thanks again for coming and providing some extremely accurate feedback. I'm excited to look back and see how much you got right compared to me. So we'll see how that goes. But with that, we'll probably cut it there, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks again for hanging out.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.